Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to all of you. My name is Anna Rilliama, and on behalf of the ASEAN Secretariat, I'm delighted to welcome you to Embracing the 4IR, Outlook, Strategies, and Plans for ASEAN. The relevance and urgency of having a strategy for the 4IR in ASEAN cannot be understated. While digital transformation has been high on the ASEAN agenda in recent years, the COVID-19 pandemic has further accelerated digital technology adoption in all aspects of the ASEAN community. New and digital technologies have allowed people to stay connected, to keep on learning and working, allowing businesses to continue operations even during the pandemic. And this will play an even greater role during recovery. Supported by the ASEAN-Australia Development Cooperation Program Phase 2, or AADCP2, the development of the 4IR Consolidated Strategy was inclusive, involving diverse ASEAN organs, sectoral bodies, and broader stakeholders. In addition to providing ASEAN's 4IR strategic framework, the Consolidated Strategy also provides specific recommendations to advance the ASEAN community's progression towards digital transformation. Following its official adoption in October 2021, the ASEAN Secretariat, with the support from the AADCP2, is hosting this socialization webinar to familiarize ASEAN stakeholders such as yourself with its 4IR Consolidated Strategy, as well as to encourage your participation in ensuring that the effective implementation of these plans and strategies are in place. To start the event, His Excellency Satvinder Singh, Deputy Secretary General of ASEAN for ASEAN Economic Community, will deliver his welcoming remarks, while His Excellency Will Nankervis, Ambassador of Australia to ASEAN, will deliver his opening remarks. I would now like to kindly invite Deputy Secretary General of ASEAN for the AEC, His Excellency Satvinder Singh, to deliver his remarks. DSG, the floor is yours.
Your Excellency Ambassador Will, the Ambassador of Australia to the ASEAN, distinguished speakers and panelists, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to all of you who are dialing in. I wish I was there in person this morning with all of you, but due to the concurrent annual meetings for the Energy Song taking place right now, I'm unable to. But I'm still very glad that I'm able to share my thoughts with all of you this morning and to welcome all of you to the webinar today, which has been themed as Embracing the Fourth Industrial Revolution, touching on outlook, strategies, and plans for the ASEAN. As you all know, the webinar is part of the ASEAN initiatives that are supporting the development of a consolidated strategy on the Fourth Industrial Revolution. In short, we called it 4IR, which many of you already also are probably aware that this has also been adopted by the ASEAN leaders at the past 38th ASEAN Summit that took place last October. The organization of the session this morning is not only to socialize our new 4IR strategy, but I think it's more important, it's also an occasion for all of us, our stakeholders, our partners, all of you, to be able to deeply reflect what has happened the last couple of months in terms of the launch of the framework, but also more importantly to share some deeper views and provide some guidance to ensure that the ASEAN Secretariat is moving in the correct path as we embark on an effective implementation plan right now for the 4IR strategy moving forward for 2022. As all of you have been aware, ladies and gentlemen, digital transformation in the ASEAN region has been progressing at quite a remarkable pace, and we have actually seen the pace in fact being more pronounced despite the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm told that currently there are estimated 463 million internet users in the region, making Southeast Asia one of the fastest growing internet markets in the world. In fact, our mobile e-commerce adoption rates, for example, I'm told that in early 2021, almost 72% of internet users, for example, in 4 ASEAN member states, namely Indonesia, Thailand, the Philippines, and Malaysia. In fact, 72% are already embarking on online shopping. Automation is definitely another area where parts of our region have excelled. Places like Singapore, places like Penang in Malaysia, and parts of Thailand, the manufacturing industry are taking the lead. And we are seeing some deep automated capacities being developed in these regions. While we also acknowledge that many parts of the region is still lagging and more needs to be done. Now, one area definitely is especially in the area of artificial intelligence, AI investment. I think this is a space where ASEAN needs to do more. When we compare where we stand, the ASEAN investment on artificial intelligence today stands around $2 per capita. And when you compare that with, for example, the investment on AI made by the US, which is roughly around $155, or with China, which is today it stands around $21 per capita, definitely the gap is quite wide. But what I can say is that fortunately, with the advent of regional significant unicorns and tech giants in the last 5 years, in all of the major capitals in ASEAN, one thing that we are beginning to see for sure is that artificial intelligence adoption plan, led by many of these players, together with the growing number of many tech startups coming up in our capital cities. This is definitely pushing for a higher prioritization of the adoption of artificial intelligence, especially among some of the AMSs such as Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and Singapore. Overall, the ASEAN digital economy future looks pretty bright, with some estimates suggesting that it could be valued as high as $300 billion by 2025. I think while the COVID-19 pandemic has been challenging for all our societies, one thing for sure, it definitely has accelerated digital and automation adoption and transformation in our region. Now, recognizing that the world will be faced more with a post-pandemic new normal, where all of the ASEAN economies have become, in fact, more adaptable than ever versus, let's say, 2 years ago at the start of the COVID-19. We are all experiencing changes and transformation, not only in the space of the economy, but also in the space of e-government and also in social services like schooling, healthcare. What we are seeing is transformation has taken place in all of these spaces, supporting our ASEAN economies to remain open and to adapt despite all the disruptions that's been brought about by the pandemic. This material change definitely has been fueled by transformation and adaptation with the use of digital and automation technologies, which now are permeating all aspects of our lives, live, work, and play. None of us could imagine that we would arrive in 2021, where banks would now be able to accept digital signatures in ASEAN capital cities. We were also not expecting where most of our children in ASEAN will be schooling online. Indeed, the 4IR has become an even more unified vision that is allowing the region to maximize the opportunities from this transformation, which has been catalyzed by the COVID challenges. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, ASEAN has put into place numerous initiatives in the last 1 year. In fact, there are 73 initiatives to date across the 3 pillars of the ASEAN community to advance the 4IR agenda. 73, not a small number. I think while 4IR related initiatives under the ASEAN political security pillar have been more focused on emphasizing on enhancing the region's cybersecurity cooperation, those undertaken, for example, within the ambit of the ASEAN social cultural pillar, they have been focused, among other things, on human capital development, digital literacy, the role of technologies in addressing the region's sustainability concerns, and so on. Likewise, in the ASEAN Economic Community space pillar, numerous initiatives have also been launched to propel the region's digital economy. such as the ASEAN's Digital Master Plan 2025 and also the ASEAN Digital Integration Framework and its action plan. This is just to name a few. More importantly, ASEAN has also adopted, as you all know, the Bandar Sri Begawan Roadmap, which again highlights some very key actions from existing initiatives that are crucial in supporting ASEAN's ongoing digital integration through a much more dedicated phased approach from this year onwards until 2025. More importantly, this roadmap also underscores the ASEAN's commitment to commence negotiation for the first time for the ASEAN Digital Economic Framework Agreement before 2025. With the increased number of the 4IR related initiatives in ASEAN, along with this new reality of high digital dependence among societies in the region, some greater synchronization also we are seeing through a much more consolidated strategy which is coming true, and we are actually truly motivated with what we are seeing. It is with all this development, we in the ASEAN Secretariat are truly motivated in embarking on developing a consolidated implementation strategy on the 4IR, which hopefully is going to provide a clear narrative on how the ASEAN community intends to progress digital transformation and embrace technologies in a much more comprehensive manner. Now, this holistic approach hopefully will allow 4IR not only to be used as an engine for the region's economic growth and competitiveness, but also become a source to promote inclusivity and also sustainability. In view of this, the Secretariat has already put into place plans in 2022 to develop this implementation plan, which is expected to be launched at the end of this year. And I suspect this implementation plan, I call it phase 1, will help to identify, in consultation with all of the relevant parties, including all of you, specific initiatives and programs of prioritization that is going to allow ASEAN to harness the potential benefits of 4IR. Among other things, our 4IR strategy will look at low-hanging fruits that will be able to provide early and practical benefits for our society. Now, to benefit our business community, for example, initiatives and efforts will have to be intensified to be maybe further helping us to digitalize our trade facilitation initiatives. I'll give you an example now. Key among some of these things that can happen and prioritize this year will be program and projects that push for the full implementation of the ASEAN Customs Transit System, as well as efforts to strengthen the interoperability and of the move towards paperless trading in the use of our own trade-related documents and those between ASEAN and our FTA partners. We are also going to be prioritizing work on the state-of-art tariff finder system platform, which will provide once for all effective information to SMEs and business owners in the ASEAN on FTAs and NTM tariff information available 24/7 on their smartphones. And this is to enable our community to be competitive and to be able to be dependent and empowered. Another exciting initiative in the pipeline, I believe that we could prioritize in implementation, is our effort, for example, in establishment of a regional comparable and recognized unique business identification number, which will hopefully help many of the SMEs in their cross-border trade and cross-border collaboration, and especially also helping them in the bankability as they are embarking on wanting to grow markets beyond their own markets. I think practical initiatives like I've mentioned just now are truly examples of what we are going to be working towards putting in our plan for implementation for phase 1. And the initiatives hopefully will all help in our region to go digital and to be stronger, more connected and more competitive. But at the same time, we also want to ensure that all these initiatives will help to empower the most vulnerable of our societies, such as women, persons with disability, MSMEs, the unemployed, the informal sectors, all also benefiting from the 4IR. What I'm touching are just examples of some of the existing and planned initiatives that fit very well in our 4IR strategy implementation. As we develop this phase 1 implementation plan, I'm sure the list is going to be expanded and better prioritized. In fact, in coming months, we plan to carry out extensive consultations with all parties concerned to ensure that the relevancy of the implementation plan is there. I said phase 1 because, as you all know, 4IR implementation plan will be an ongoing exercise planned annually, hopefully from now onwards, with very clear deliverables tracked for implementation. Practically, we really cannot embark on all of the 4IR implementation strategies all in one go in a single year. Therefore, we need to adjust and we need to prioritize. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a very long journey for ASEAN to develop this consolidated strategy on the 4IR, and it's our sincere hope that the strategy will be of relevance to the emerging and future 4IR needs of the region. And while the ASEAN 4IR strategy has been finalized overall, focus areas and priorities set in the document, we all kind of know that they are not really cast in stone, and further alignment with ASEAN's future 4IR needs and requirements will have to be looked into. Before I end my opening remarks, please allow me to also take this opportunity right now to extend my highest appreciation to Australia and the Australian ASEAN Development Cooperation Programme Phase 2, as well as the YCPS team for the excellent support in the overall development of our 4IR strategy. Our special appreciation also goes to all the relevant ASEAN sectoral bodies, the stakeholders, partners. All of you have made deep contributions in the coming together of the 4IR strategy. And I'm sure you're not going to stand back, and you're going to be providing the same support as we do the implementation plan. Once again, thank you very much, and I wish all of you a meaningful and fruitful discussion. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, DSG Satvinder Singh, for your welcoming remarks. I would like now to kindly invite His Excellency Will Nankervis, the Ambassador of Australia to ASEAN, to deliver his opening remarks for the event. Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much, Anna. Really great to be here with everyone this morning, and looking forward to hearing a little bit of this really important event. DSG Singh, panelists, colleagues, and friends, good morning all. DSG Singh has just spoken really eloquently of the importance of the fourth industrial revolution and the response to it. Even prior to the pandemic, it was clear that the technological disruption of the 4IR was radically transforming social, economic, and political systems, and that it presented immense policy opportunities and challenges to the governments and people of the Indo-Pacific. For example, way back in 2016, and that seems like a really long time ago, Google projected the scale of the digital economy in Southeast Asia would increase by 550% by 2025. With the unprecedented boom in e-commerce resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic, we can expect this increase to be even higher. Harnessing technologies can lessen some of the impacts of the pandemic and accelerate economic and social recovery. As well as ensuring an inclusive digital economy, the 4IR entails revolutions in data governance and cybersecurity, and the provision of essential government services such as education and e-health. And by connecting the unconnected, 4IR technologies can help ensure that particular needs of women and girls, people with disabilities, and vulnerable and marginalized groups are understood and addressed. The ASEAN Outlook on the Indo-Pacific recognizes the importance of this transformation and prioritizes cooperation on preparing for the 4IR. The ASEAN Comprehensive Recovery Framework also identifies how critical the 4IR is through its broad strategy for accelerating inclusive digital transformation, and in the framework's implementation plan, the commitment to develop a consolidated strategy on the fourth industrial revolution for ASEAN, which of course brings us here today. I'm really genuinely delighted that Australia, through the ASEAN Australia Development Cooperation Programme Phase 2, or AADCP2, was able to support the development of this consolidated strategy. I particularly welcome the inclusion in the strategy of recommendations that promote gender equality and strengthen women's economic empowerment in ASEAN, as well as individuals with disabilities and other marginalised groups. Of course, the concept note for this event outlines some of the challenges of a unified approach towards the 4IR, including the distinct stages of 4IR readiness of different ASEAN member states. Unfortunately, we're seeing worrying developments in Myanmar's economy, and Australia is really concerned about the situation in Myanmar. We strongly support ASEAN's leadership in addressing the crisis, and we've constantly called on the regime to allow full and effective and rapid implementation of the 5-point consensus. As DSG Singh mentioned, the Consolidated Strategy on the Fourth Industrial Revolution for ASEAN was adopted by ASEAN leaders at the 38th and 39th ASEAN Summits held from 26 to 28 October 2021. During that period, ASEAN and Australia also agreed to enter into a Comprehensive Strategic Partnership, or CSP. Australia is really honoured to become a comprehensive strategic partner of ASEAN, and we're highly focused on implementing our CSP, a CSP that will be substantive and deliver real benefits to ASEAN and to Australia and to the region. And I think Australia's support for the Consolidated Strategy reflects the best aspects of our enduring partnership with ASEAN. It is, at its heart, a partnership that's responsive to emerging priorities and challenges, while also providing sustained support for long-term initiatives. So while this Consolidated Strategy has been developed and is now being socialised, Australia stands ready to continue to support this critical work. AADCP2, which has supported this important 4IR strategy, concludes at the end of this year. But a successor program is currently being designed under the Australia for ASEAN Futures initiative, announced by the Australian Prime Minister last October in support of our Comprehensive Strategic Partnership. I'd like to thank the ASEAN Integration Monitoring Division of the ASEAN Secretariat for partnering with AADCP2 on this work. I appreciate the efforts of the team from YCP Solidiance engaged through AADCP2 in support of this strategy. I hope you have a really interactive discussion today on the strategy to help ensure wide and effective implementation. And I look forward to ongoing cooperation between ASEAN and Australia to give effect to the Consolidated Strategy and to further deepen our Comprehensive Strategic Partnership. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Will, for your welcome remarks. Before we move to the main sessions of the webinar, we would like to kindly invite all of those in the panel, as well as all speakers, for a photo session. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, please turn on your video if you can and smile. I will count. Let's just wait a bit for our panelists. Dear panelists. All right, we will count 1, 2, 3, smile. 1, 2, 3, smile. Thank you everyone for participating in that photo session. We will now be moving to the next section of this webinar, which is actually the presentation on the Consolidated Strategy on the 4IR, which will begin with the sharing of the 4IR video, which will follow shortly. Please stay tuned to this very informative brief video on the 4IR strategy.
We have come to a point where communities are no longer just physical. The world is rapidly moving into the digital space, in a phenomenon that is also called the Fourth Industrial Revolution. By and large, the opportunities deriving from the Fourth Industrial Revolution in ASEAN are limitless, as its technologies allow people to stay connected, help the region's economy to recover, grow, and become more competitive, and improve and empower ASEAN citizens' livelihood and lives. To stay ahead, ASEAN brings forward its Consolidated Strategy, which embraces a unified and cross-pillar approach to the Fourth Industrial Revolution. In the area of technological governance and cybersecurity, we envision a digital ASEAN that is open, secure, transparent, and connected, while respecting privacy and ethics in line with international practices. In the area of digital economy, what we are after is a digital ASEAN that harnesses technologies to build a resilient, inclusive, integrated, and globally competitive economy. Finally, in the area of digital transformation of society, what is envisioned is a digital ASEAN that embraces innovation in transforming society, contributing to social progress and sustainable development. Today, in ASEAN, we are proud to say that we are moving towards a digital community and are ready to make the most of what the Fourth Industrial Revolution has to offer.
May I now kindly invite Dr. Alexander Chandra of the ASEAN Secretariat to deliver his presentation on the Consolidated Strategy on the 4IR for ASEAN. Alex, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, everybody. Ambassador Wilnan Kervis, other excellencies present in the audience, distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome and also very good morning to you all. Before I begin my presentation, I would like to thank each and every one of you for your participation in the socialization event. As indicated in the welcoming remarks from our Deputy Secretary General for the AEC earlier, this webinar is part of the larger project to develop our consolidated strategy on the Fourth Industrial Revolution for ASEAN, which has commenced since around mid-2020. With the official adoption of the strategy at the 30th ASEAN Summit last October, we can now properly socialize our strategy to our stakeholders and public at large, making sure that everyone is aware of our 4IR strategy and plans moving forward, so that collective efforts can be pursued to allow our region benefits from this phenomenon. As many in the audience aware of, our 4IR strategy was identified as one of the cross-pillar deliverables under Brunei Darussalam's ASEAN Chairmanship last year. The importance and timeliness of this strategy cannot be understated, especially in light of the digitalization imperative during the COVID-19 pandemic, which continues to persist until today. My presentation today will focus on the process to develop and content or substance of our 4IR strategy, as well as our plans moving forward. Next slide, please. Next slide. For this particular slide, please allow me to highlight 3 key points. First, ASEAN journey to develop the consolidated strategy has been long. Digital transformation, as you're probably aware of, has been high on ASEAN agenda ever since 4IR was given political recognition by ASEAN leaders at the 30th ASEAN Summit back in 2017. Since then, our region has seen an intensification of cross-pillar dialogues and conversations on the issue. Key among this was the special coordinating COW meeting on the Fourth Industrial Revolution that was held on the 13th July 2019, which agreed for ASEAN to develop the consolidated strategy for ASEAN to provide clear narrative on how the ASEAN community aims to progress digital transformation and embrace new technologies in a comprehensive manner. Second, taking a whole of community approach, the process to develop the 4IR strategy was inclusive, involving sectoral bodies and stakeholders across the 3 pillars of ASEAN community. And lastly, after a lengthy process, the 4IR strategy finally finalized by the high-level task force on ASEAN economic integration at this meeting in August last year, endorsed by the 30th ASEAN Community Council on 4 October 2021, and finally, as I mentioned before, adopted at the 30th ASEAN Summit in October last year. Next slide, please. There is little doubt that the 4IR and its technologies have been reshaping our economies and societies. It changes the way we produce, live, work, and interact. The impacts of the 4IR have been vast for our communities. For governments, it requires a paradigm shift in policy, focus, and regulatory responses, governance, financing, capability development, and infrastructure investment. It also presents opportunities for businesses to increase productivity, reduce labor costs, introduce new business and market opportunities. It also offers workers a better working experience through time saving, improvement of organizational skills and productivity, and a better work-life balance. And finally, it empowers our citizens and improve their livelihood through the digitalization of basic social services provisions, as well as its contribution in addressing sustainable development challenges facing our region. Next slide, please. What we want to emphasize in the slide is that our 4IR strategy is not an initiative built from scratch, as its development takes into account all 4IR related works of ASEAN, spanning across the 3 pillars of ASEAN Community. To date, as mentioned by our Deputy Secretary General Satinder Singh, we have around to date 73 4IR related regional initiatives, 13 for APAC, 29 for AEC, and 27 for ASEAN Socio-Cultural Community, respectively. This is in addition to the 4 cross-pillar initiatives, including the Consolidated strategy itself. In developing our 4IR strategy, we took into consideration the visions of this initiative, take this further to present a unified outlook and direction that will form the foundation of our digital ASEAN community in the future. It is also important to note that in developing the strategy, we look into existing models used by different countries or region, emulate the best of them, and adjust it to our region's circumstances, needs, and requirements. Unlike many existing models, ASEAN 4IR strategy goes beyond traditional manufacturing-specific focus and take into account the wider political, security, economic, socio-cultural dimensions and perspective, making sure that the document is holistic in its approach. Next slide, please. This slide shows the strategic framework of our 4IR strategy. It sets out the overall direction of ASEAN works on the 4IR moving forward. In sum, ASEAN 4IR work will focus on 3 focus areas, each with its own respective vision and strategic priorities. First is on technological governance and cybersecurity that aims at digital ASEAN that is open, secure, transparent, and connected, whilst at the same time respecting privacy and ethics in line with international best practices. Second is on digital economy, which aims at a digital ASEAN that harnesses technologies to build a resilient, inclusive, integrated, and globally competitive economy. And the third is on digital transformation of society, which aims at a digital ASEAN that embraces innovation in transforming society and contributing to social progress and sustainable development. In addition to the aforementioned focus areas, strategic priorities have also been identified to support ASEAN 4IR vision. And these are on technological governance, cybersecurity. Our strategic priorities include good governance, technological governance, data governance, and cybercrime, and cybersecurity legislation and commitment. As for digital economy, priorities will be given to digital trade, Industry 4.0, services sector of the new economy, smart agriculture, and micro, small, medium enterprises. Last but not least is digital transformation of society, where our strategic priorities will focus on forward-looking human resource development, inclusive digital domains, expanded cultural development, social welfare and protection, and innovative environmental sustainability. Our 4IR strategy also identifies 6 enablers to support the strategic initiative across the aforementioned focus areas. And these being digital infrastructure, capability building, institutions and governance, resource mobilization, cooperation and collaboration, and effective monitoring. All these are key foundation for ASEAN for ASEAN's overall 4IR readiness. Next slide, please. ASEAN, in addition to the aforementioned strategic priorities, the previous slide, please. In addition to the aforementioned strategic priorities, our 4IR strategy also identifies a number of ASEAN post-pandemic economic recovery 4IR priorities. What are these? These are low-hanging fruit that can help us further accelerate ASEAN's 4IR journey in the immediate term, whilst at the same time contributing to the region's long-term competitiveness, well-being, inclusiveness, and sustainability. First focus will be on the digitalization of trade documents, which is key to ASEAN effort to further reduce trade costs, enhance our region's participation in regional and global value chain, while at the same time contributing to sustainable development. Although progress in our effort to digitalize our trade facilitation initiative already been made, more can be done to achieve this. So to make sure that these initiatives are fit for purpose in the post-COVID-19 economic environment. Second is addressing digital divide, where immediate focus will be given to the promotion of digital identity system, such as through a regionally harmonized unique business identification number, or UBIN, and also the development of policies and regulation that can encourage healthy competition and lower barriers to entry in the digital market. And third is partnership with the private sector to improve, among others, the region's digital infrastructure and tools, as well as relevant skill set, enabling those left behind to take opportunities the digital technologies have to offer. The third priorities, short-term priorities, will be on digital infrastructure, with 5G highlighted as the foundational enabler in ASEAN's 4IR journey. The promotion and development of 5G infrastructure will be key in ASEAN efforts to develop an economic ecosystem that reinforces the region's economic recovery and promotes sustainable and inclusive growth. Last but not least, but equally important, is our effort to drive towards low carbon economy. While we know that while presenting opportunities to advance environmental sustainability, the use of 4IR technologies typically requires large amounts of energy sources. Therefore, the transition towards renewable energy will need to be accelerated if ASEAN were to fully capitalize on the digital revolution without undermining its sustainability agenda. ASEAN work in this area can be built upon its existing initiatives, such as those under energy, finance, transport, and so on and so forth. Next slide, please. Now, our 4IR strategy identifies numerous recommendations and their corresponding broad key performance indicators. However, I will focus my presentation here on recommendations that affect the 3 community pillars at the same time. First, our immediate priority is the setting up of a clear institutional mechanism to oversee the implementation and monitoring of all of our ASEAN 4IR related initiatives. The strategy proposes the formation of a task force or working group, such as in the form of a ASEAN 4IR task force group or working group under the Joint Consultative Meeting or JCM, which has been mandated. It is a sectoral body that has been mandated to address cross-sectoral or pillar issues at the senior official level. Accordingly, the proposed institutional setup may include representatives from each pillar of the ASEAN cooperation and can be tasked to coordinate with all sectoral bodies in implementation of the priorities of the strategy. The second medium-term priority is the progress review of our 4IR strategy, priorities, and initiative, which can be carried out every 2 years. This will involve an evaluation of whether progress have been made equally and equitably across all strategic priorities, as well as to flag any implementation bottleneck and other areas for improvement. As for the region's long-term priority, this involves detailed review and the upgrading of our 4IR strategy every 5 years at the very least, to take into account new technologies, application, and strategic priorities that would have not yet been covered in detail by the document's earlier version. Next slide, please. Now, as His Excellency Satvinder Singh already indicated in his welcoming remark earlier on, our 4IR strategy our 4IR work does not end with our 4IR strategy. Moving forward, we need to make sure that the strategy can be fully and effectively implemented and bring about useful and practical benefits for the citizens in our region. In addition to the institutional setup I discussed earlier on, a plan is currently in the making for ASEAN to have a 4IR implementation plan, which we hope can be launched at the end of Cambodia chairmanship later this year. More specifically, we are looking to identify specific initiatives, projects, programs that can enhance our ability to harness the benefits of 4IR. The initiative indicated in the slide are just indication of what we could possibly include in the implementation plan. And this may include 4IR related ongoing or planned initiative of various ASEAN sectoral bodies, as well as those of our stakeholders. As in the case of our 4IR strategy, we are also looking to consult all relevant parties in the development of this implementation plan. Next slide, please. I will end my presentation here, and I'm very much looking forward to hear what the panels and audience have to say about our ASEAN 4IR future in light of the 4IR strategy that I have just presented today. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Back to you, Anna.
Thank you, Alex, for that insightful presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions for Alex or the ASEAN Secretariat at this point, I know it probably was a lot to take in because it's a very big consolidated strategy. We have the Q&A section on your Zoom window that is waiting for your questions. So Alex can be answering this as we go throughout the panel discussion or answering them live later on during the Q&A or open forum just after the panel discussion. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, how exciting it is to be where we are now, witnessing the onset of the fourth industrial revolution in no other than the most dynamic region, which is ASEAN. Moving on now to what is perhaps the most anticipated part of this webinar, allow me to call on our lovely panelists to the screen to kickstart our panel discussion. So first among our panelists is David Liu, Strategy Marketing Department President for Huawei's Asia-Pacific operations. I'm sure no one here is stranger to all the digital contributions of Huawei in ASEAN, so we look forward to hearing what you have to say today. Welcome, David.
Oh, thank you, Anna.
Joining David is Charlene Putri, co-founder and CEO of Nusantics, a startup that is promoting a bio-based future by delivering innovation in value-added lifestyle products. So as a bio-based economy enabler, she's a strong proponent of the biological side of the 4AR, which will pave the way for deeper and better personalization down the line. Welcome, Charlene, to our panel today.
Hello, Anna. Thank you. Glad to be here.
To complement Charlene's startup perspective, everyone, we're also joined by AIM Charoen-Fan, who brings many years as investor, venture capitalist, and advisor to startups in the region. He's currently ASEAN Director for Impact Collective, Director for Techstars in Thailand, venture partner at Mandalay Venture Partners, and carry many other positions, predominantly in startup ecosystems. Welcome, AIM. We're glad to have you.
Thank you, and it's an honor to be here this morning.
Thank you, AIM. Next is Dr. Le Huang Yung, official representative of the Association of Southeast Asian Teacher Education Network and the Vice President of Vietnam's University of Social Sciences and Humanities. We all know that most of our productive exposure to the 4AR actually starts at schools and institutions. So Dr. Yung will be representing stakeholders from the education sector to provide their unique perspective in this discussion today. Welcome, Dr. Yung. We're extremely happy that you could join us.
Yeah, very good morning. It's my great pleasure to be here.
And wrapping up our panel is Pak Diki Hindarto, advisor for the Indonesia Joint Crediting Mechanism implementation. So Pak Diki here brings many years of experience in the use of 4AR and combating climate change, in reducing carbon emissions among industries, and in facilitating the transition to clean energy among various stakeholders. So sustainability is, of course, one of the things that we're particularly looking to gain towards, since 4AR technologies mean that we really never need to compromise anymore, right? So we look forward to your sharings today, Pak Diki. Welcome.
Thank you, Anna. Good morning. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Excellent. So to kickstart this discussion, allow me to first activate a quick poll that you should see popping up on your screen right now. So our core topics today, as you know, are 1, ASEAN, and 2, the 4AR. So it may be good to first gauge how everyone feels in relation to the marriage of these two elements. So the poll question is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how ready do you think is ASEAN for the 4AR? So while everybody is submitting their answers, and I can see so many hundreds pouring in to this question in the next few seconds or so, let me ask David the same. David, in your opinion, how ready is ASEAN for the fourth industrial revolution?
Yeah, so if you ask my opinion, I would like to give to between 7 and to 8. Yeah, so I mean in ASEAN, so we have a good opportunity because we have a fast growth of the economic. And also, yeah, so we have a good foundation because for the 4IR is the main driving power is the technology, digital technology and digital infrastructure. Yeah. So in ASEAN, yeah, so a lot of countries like Thailand, right, Singapore, Indonesia, and Malaysia, yeah, Philippines, a lot of countries, we already take some leading positions. Yeah, but also for moving forward, how can we to further to enhance our digital technology and also digital infrastructure, and also most important for ASEAN, yeah, we already launched our master plan 2025, right? So that means we from the macro level, we also have a very long-term strategy, clear strategy. Yeah. So I would like to give maybe 8.
Thanks, David. I mean, that's encouraging because as I see it, there are so many encouraging initiatives that are already happening, and I assume that this was because Huawei, for example, I'm sure you saw and you witnessed and you noticed this digital revolution early on, and are willing to actually ride on this and take advantage of this and take this further down the line. Now, let's see what our audience today actually answered to this poll question. I'm fearful of how the results are because I'm hoping that everybody's hopeful, but let's look at the results. All right, so according to the public, on a scale of 1 to 10, we are seeing mostly 7. So we have a range of answers from 3 to 10, which is encouraging because there's no 1 or 2. And at the same time, majority is actually answered with a 7 out of 10, which is a great starting point for the launch of this consolidated strategy on the 4IR, right? So what we're getting from this is that we're actually more than ready. And it should be no surprise here that some of us are actually ahead of this than others. I mean, we're already seeing breakthrough technologies via nanotechnology. We have digital currencies, we have digital fabrication. And luckily enough, we have Charlene here, who is at the forefront of this revolution, digital revolution, through Nusantics. So Charlene, I want to ask you today, you're living day to day amid these cutting edge technologies. In your opinion, knowing Southeast Asia, which is a group of 10 countries, where are the biggest opportunities for ASEAN if we just put 4IR at the front and center of everything? Thoughts?
Okay. Thank you. So I think the main 2 keywords here are health and biodiversity. So basically, there is no health without biodiversity. And why I said this and how can it relate with the 4IR? So basically, I'm running Nusantics, an Indonesian genomic-based biotechnology startup. So this genomics technology just proved that we are never 100% human. So we always thought that we are a single species, but in fact, each of us is a holobiont or a living ecosystem because half of cells in our body belongs to microbes, which are bacteria, virus, and fungi. And these microbes lives in our skin, our gut, and other part of our body. But the irony is, without balanced and diverse microbes, our immune system is collapsing and we will die. And these diverse and balanced microbes literally depends on the variety of diet, lifestyle, and biodiversity in the environment around us. This is a concept that we currently know as One Health. So it is very true that unbalanced microbial diversity leads to many zoonosis-driven infectious disease, for example, COVID-19. But under balanced microbial condition, actually immune system will be okay and in fact more resilience. So the point here is the challenge is that we have to learn how to reach symbiosis with microbes. So we have to be smarter than the virus, than the bacteria. So we have to know when it is safe to open school, for example, when to close it, and how to preserve the microbial balance on this planet and in our body. And all of this start with genomics, an intersection between biology, physical, and digital advancement, which is one of the key technology shapers of the fourth industrial revolution. So, for your information, in the startup ecosystem, we believe that the next technology will be biology, and this means like at least 40 trillion US dollar disruption. So, the vision is that one day we will be able to diagnose precisely and transfer microbes from one body to another body, just like we are easily transfer data like today. And one day also we will be able to engineer human immunity and planet immunity using the microbial diversity. So in this new world where the game is to engineer immunity made possible, we are actually one step closer to deliver the promise of precision and personalized treatment. So this is where the 4IR strategy will become more relevant than ever. This is a huge opportunity for ASEAN, I think, because even though we may not have the best digital tech in the world, but we have the highest genetics diversity in the world. So that's why I think it's time for us to catch this opportunity and make something cool out of it. Because we as a region, ASEAN, have to be able to globally lead this One Health initiatives. So I think that's all from my perspective, Anna.
Thanks, Charlene. I mean, as you were speaking, all I could think about is, are you sure it's still 4IR, not 5IR? Because this is a bit out of this world already.
I think it is 4IR
Yeah.
because, I've read books from the founder of the World Economic Forum, right? He wrote a book regarding the fourth industrial revolution, and he predicted that the biological part on the 4IR will be the genetic engineering, right? Will be the genetic engineering. But then come the COVID-19. And then we suddenly understand that, this microbes is very important, that they shapes our life. And actually, the technology regarding the microbes is far more simple than the genetic engineering. So I think it's still 4IR.
I believe you. But I guess it's really just timely that the consolidated strategy was for ASEAN was adopted last year and no later. Now, Aim, let me pivot to you here for a while, because a big hurdle actually for most startups like Charlene here is the lack of funding and the lack of risk-taking among traditional businesses and traditional business stakeholders, right? And what I wonder is if it's the lack of readiness of the market that is actually perceived by such investors. So from the eyes of investors, right? From the eyes of VCs and other similar stakeholders such as banks, is ASEAN actually already as ready as you need them to be for this investment to start pouring in? What are your thoughts on this?
Great question. I thank Charlotte for alluding to the ecosystem, because having been in the tech space for the past 10 years, I've seen thousands of entrepreneurs annually invested in 25, ran co-working and media. I find that the enablement for the 4IR strategy will hinge upon not just from the macro level, which is off to the great start, but also really the implementation down to the grassroots and really building these ecosystems, not just in the major cities. So if you were to ask me if I were to rate readiness for the 4IR in Bangkok, it would be very high. But outside of Bangkok, it's almost like a different country. And I've rated it very low. Because what we see for entrepreneurs is that given no external support, very few that are very driven area entrepreneur and edgy will be able to make it over time. But it takes too long and they have too many mistakes. And sometimes they're not able to scale and become impactful, not just for their community, but for the country or to be able to go on the international markets. But really, fundamentally, what do entrepreneurs need? We need the right knowledge and support. A lot of that is through mentorship and programs. We need access to market and the ability for ASEAN as the AAC converges to provide that ability to land in one country and reach 600-700 million people. But then I think one of the key issues that we face, even as an angel investor looking at a lot of founders, is the ability to be investment ready and attract capital. And that goes way before building a pitch deck or joining an accelerator or being recognized. But fundamentally, how do we enable folks that are smart farmers, as you mentioned, or people in the hospitality industry that are pivoting to new careers to not just reskill and upskill, but be able to take a lot of the tools that we provide in these framework and policies and actually allow them to be equipped and build a livelihood. And I find that one of the key actors that we can augment through this great initiative is to support more intermediaries and what we call entrepreneurial support organizations. So anybody who's running angel networks, accelerator, schools, any program, convene the people. We have inspired and launched many unicorns in the region, like through network Carousel out of Singapore was from one of our startup weekends. Those players also need to be supported and will be crucial to creating the next Charlotte.
Very valid point, Aim. Thank you for that. Because granted, the digital revolution is here, right? It's here right now, and it cannot, but it cannot be denied that some have better access and proficiency at it than others. Case in point, Bangkok, and I'm sure in every single one of the AMS, this is actually true, right? So there is still that digital divide that we need to overcome so that many more of us can get the funding, many more of us can get the support, and many more of us can benefit from the 4AR. I think this is a good time to call Dr. Young into the conversation because a lot of these skills we actually start learning from educational institutions and professionals such as teachers, right? So I personally, I although I look somehow young, I actually have been out of school for a while now. So I'm not exactly clear anymore on how this digital revolution that we see so strongly is being perceived by the younger generation. So Dr. Young, from the educator's perspective, in your opinion, how ready is the ASEAN youth and society for the 4AR?
Thank you so much, Anna, for the very interesting questions. In my observation, especially throughout about more than 22 years of teaching at the university and being dean and administrator of the institution, I have observed that a large portion of students are fully aware of the impact of the fourth industrial revolution, and they are very well prepared for such in terms of their digital skill, their adaptability to the new situation, their self-training of such a kind of supplementary skill that are essential to their current work. However, from our perspective of educators, through our observation, we think that many of them may need more active initiative to promote them, to push them, to help them connect to the youth in the region. So I strongly believe that there should be some different kind of project that should better embrace their social innovation, the community engagement, as well as a more sustainable development way. Let me give a few examples. In our institution, you know that a lot of activity in our university hosted by the student, and especially during the pandemic period, they are very active. They are active in the way that they created virtually, and now they tend to like both the virtual and the blended form, even though that we are about to get back to the school. So in terms of the readiness of the ASEAN youth for a society in the 4IR, I think that there should be a kind of mindset change, which should be stronger for a new paradigm shift in education, for better and for more sustainable development of the society. So our youth are very dynamic, but we should get them connected. So I do believe that this is a very good start for the consolidated strategy for the IR that you already mentioned earlier. And I think we should also promote the entrepreneurship and startup spirit among our students. Okay, so that's for the questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Young. And I do agree, because I'm actually less, in my opinion, I'm less worried about the youth because they're very agile, right? Of all the people here, they're going to be the most flexible of us all. So thank you, Dr. Young. Extremely enlightening. I think we can all agree that although many are not there yet, right, there are beacons of hope and light in ASEAN. For example, the youth that we can follow for guidance. And here, as Dr. Young pointed out, this is where collaborations, cooperations, connectedness between public-private, between private-private, between even public-public can really be of great help as it elevates the skill sets, right, in a holistic manner moving forward. Now, speaking of collaborations, another aspect where collaborations are perhaps of great benefit and can lead to really great results is our move towards environmental sustainability. Pak Diki, good morning once again, Pak. Just as how Dr. Young was just discussing the shifts that are required in mindsets, right, and how we learn, how we educate, you actually have also been at the forefront of these shifts from an environmental standpoint. Can you share with us examples of how collaborations have helped move forward the sustainability story in ASEAN? What have made them successful?
Yeah, thank you, Anna. Yeah, we know that we are not in the pandemic situation, but we always forgot that we have bigger challenge ahead. This is what we call the climate change. And here, one of the most important aspect in the sustainability currently is the implementation of the environmental aspect, as well as then how to eradicate the climate change. So here, one of the main points of the implementing environmental sustainability and combating the climate change is how then we can implement the good and sophisticated technology by using the 4AR. And in here, the 4AR can play a very significant role. We have long experiences in implementing this 4AR in the industrial sector, energy, electrical generation, as well as the oil refinery. Everything we do is within the framework of enhancing sustainability and preventing the climate change. Our experience is in GCM implementing emission reduction in the industrial sector shows that the collaboration among stakeholders here is a must. So to reduce the emission, the latest technology and 4AR that must be applied. This is where the collaboration and communication and the implementation of 4AR become very important. For example, not only technology provider that need to understand the 4AR, but project owners, consultants, contractors, at least must have the same basic understanding of the technology to be applied, so that the result of the implementing this technology will increase the sustainability. And not only them, even the government and financing sectors also must have the same frequencies with the implementer. And further, the collaboration among countries also can enhance and speed up the implementation of sustainability and climate change eradication by using the latest technology, and particularly that related to 4AR. That's maybe from my perspective. So I think it is very, very important to have a collaboration among all of the stakeholders.
All stakeholders.
ASEAN, yes.
Correct. And I think I like what you point out, the key of it not being limited to one small group, right? Yes. Everyone needs to be on board, and Everyone
Everyone.
needs to be going towards this objective, because that's the only way that we can really move forward. So besides this, let's not deny it. What we also need in ASEAN more than anything is that baseline infrastructure that we can use to enable partnerships, right, and initiatives. So I'll throw this question out to David as a representative from Huawei. Can you tell us more about Huawei's work in 5G, which excites everyone in this audience right now, and any other work that you are doing to catapult actually ASEAN and the region to greater digital heights?
Okay, so thank you, Anna. So just like I mentioned earlier, right? So the key driving power of the 4IR is the digital technology and also the digital infrastructure, such as 5G, big data, and AI. Yeah, before go to the 5G, I also want to add some more other information about the readiness of the ASEAN in the digital infrastructure. So for the connectivity and also the cloud are the foundation of the digital infrastructure. So, but just like I mentioned, for the ASEAN, is developed unbalanced in this digital infrastructure, right? So, for example, for the cloud penetration in the ASEAN, the average is only less than 25%. But we know in the region, Singapore will take the leadership, right? So, but for the LTE, the 4G penetration today, I mean in the region, right? Before we go to the 5G, today 4G is also only 54% of the penetration, and also for the fixed broadband penetration is also only around 35% only. So yeah, so this numbers also shows meanings of the family and also people, right? A lack of the access and care. So I think overall for ASEAN digital infrastructure is still, I think, a little far from the really requirements of the 4IR. So that's why I think for the enhancement of the ICT investment, right? So and also infrastructure and also for the talent development, is very important for ASEAN to drive the force the IR. So but currently we do also the shortage of the digital skilled talent and also we impose very significant constraints to the 4IR in the ASEAN. So we know the 4IR is driven by the innovation. So talent is the fundamental, right? So that's why so Huawei will also like to cooperate in both the technology innovation and also for the talent cultivation. Right? But for the 5G, so I like to share, So Huawei, already served more than half of the in the world, not only in ASEAN, right, of the 5G users. So we already participated in the construction of more than 90 5G network. So I think this is already more than 50% of the market shares. We also already built more than 900,000 base stations. So it's almost 60% of the total of the world. So and also in Thailand, Huawei I think is work with the operators is progressing very fast. In the totally 5G deployment. So Thailand have very amazing the results of the 5G rollout. From the GSM data shows that the Thailand 5G is developing 1.5 times faster than the 4G. So and also in the Bangkok, so is one of the world's top 10 5G the best performance cities. So but not only for the 5G technology, right? So Huawei we also use the 5G cloud and also AI technology to help the digital transformation of the national industries. So alongside with the carrier and also other partners, right? So we already deploying 5G in the healthcare, in the ports, and also for the mining, for the manufacturing, and also for education sectors across the region, right, for the digitalization. So today, Huawei already undertaken more than 800 5G 2B projects. So this is accounting for more than 80% of the market share in this world. So for example, right, so smarter healthcare. So Huawei smart healthcare solution, I think in Thailand, yeah, we work with Secretariat, the largest hospital in Thailand. We enable remote consultation, intelligent medical image analysis, and also autonomous medical vehicles to provide more convenient patient care, reduce the workload of the doctors, and also during the pandemic, right? So we will minimize the contact, which greatly reduce the risk of the cross infection. So this is, I think, the first smart hospital platform in ASEAN integrated with 5G, cloud edge computing, and also AI technology. So in July of 2021, Huawei also set up the joint innovation lab with Srinath Hospital to incubate a new innovation medical service and applications. Yeah. So, and also in the past, Huawei we deployed the 5G, right, and remote control of the country clan, and also for 5G unmanned container trucks. So I think, yeah, because Huawei, yeah, so what we already deployed these solutions, so we change the whole industry, producing system, right? So in the past, we know all the drivers in the gantry, yeah, have to climb to 20 meters high, the control rooms, right, and the workload, and work continuously for 8 hours, right? So a lot of that, for like the back hacks and also leg pains, right? So all of these common occupational diseases. So, but now with our 5G AI solutions, so today all the drivers, they can sit, yeah, in the air-conditioned office and the control. Same time, they can control several cranes remotely. So this also increases the loading and also unloading efficiency by 20%. Yeah. So I think most important, yeah, for the working conditions of the driver has improved. So for these occupational diseases have been decreased dramatically, and also the recruitment of the driver is very easier today. So Huawei not only, right, so we deploy our autonomous driving technology, right, to the ports and also to the mining, and also for the drones also are deployed to the port inspections. So I think all of this key success of the digital revolution, yeah, is that Huawei provides advanced technology, so such as AI, and also for cloud, right, and also for the big data. So yeah, we would like, right, to collaborate more, yeah, in this digital revolution. Right? We in ASEAN to bridge the digital divide, and also provide ubiquitous connectivity, and also pervasive intelligence to the ASEAN regions to take the leader position in the 4IR, and also for the my last point is for the 5G. Yeah, maybe people understand it's only, yeah, think about it for the wireless, right? But actually for the 5G, it also includes the F5G. F5G, that means is the fixed, yeah, it is a fixed communication, right, for the 5G technology. So for the 5G and F5G are complementary to each other, and also play very irreplaceable roles in different service scenarios. Yeah. So for example, 5G is a network in the sky, yeah, but for F5G is a network on the ground. So since today we are entering the digital era, so Huawei we offer both the leading 5G and F5G. Yeah. So for this solution, both of these solutions together will create the value in more and more industries, yeah, with ultra high bandwidth, and also include the security, reliability, and also for the lower latency for the network. Right? So all of this enable the industry, the internet to revolution, right, to their production methods, right, and also to accelerate industry digital transformation. So yeah, and last point. So for the meanwhile, the ICT technology also become rather energy to drive a green industry revolution. Yeah, just like the General Secretary mentioned, right? For the 4IR, yeah, we also will go to rather for green, for carbon rather neutrality. Right? So through Huawei, we also combine the digital and also electronic technology to develop innovative rather digital energy. And also this will minimize the carbon footprint of the ICT infrastructure. So by leveraging the clean power generation, electricity transformation, and also for the smart rather energy storage. So Huawei, we would like, right, to use the 5G, AI, and the technology, right, to work together with ASEAN to take the leading and also for a green journey of the 4IR.
Thank you, David. And thank you to Huawei for your continued commitment on this in ASEAN. I mean, I cannot stress it enough. I think Huawei is one of the companies that has invested more than anybody in this field, in 5G and in infrastructure. And it's clear, right, that infrastructure and talent, these are really what we need to be looking at first and foremost for us to really benefit from the 4IR. These two need to be at par with global leaders, if not better, so that we can really benefit from this revolution. Now, there is usually a third thing that we need to be looking at, actually, and it enables both infrastructure and talent from another direction, right? And this is no other than policy. So while we have many of ASEAN's policymakers in our audience today, what I'd like to ask our panelists right now is what kind of policies would startups, corporates, investors want ASEAN to push forward to accelerate this digital transformation in Southeast Asia? Aim, why don't we start with you from the investor perspective?
Sure, that's a great segue. I think one of the key things that we're trying to encourage is that more high net worth corporations support rather than compete or outcompete emerging startups and technology. We have some questions from the audience around research. We're seeing a lot of great minds that are not enabled fully to be able to take what they've done at the lab level and scale it. So I think what we need to unleash is that there is no shortage of capital. In every economics I meet, they say, the number of money in circulation have increased 6 times or some insane amount, but it hasn't trickled to the right places. I think we're spending a lot of money unsustainably to really just prop up the economies. But how do we invest and teach a man or a woman to fish so that they can use entrepreneurship and digital technologies to enable a better living for their families? So that goes to show that if we can redirect some of those capital, whether it is to encourage more angel investors to invest and get tax breaks or VC funds to form, I think there are certain jurisdictions like in Singapore that make it more easy for countries to incorporate or set up funds. Being able to harmonize, as the prior initiatives mentioned, to set up a company in one country and expand very quickly and be able to do business cross-border and understand the laws and legislation. We will not have a lot of startups or VC crowd in one market, but really spread out across the region. And obviously Singapore is coming from a very great base and all of us love to do business there. But I think we can learn from one another and really leapfrog, trying trial and error and seeing what are the best practices so that we can harmonize. One of the key to do away with capital gains tax for early stage startups. So founders can freely sell their shares and not be taxed and penalized. Let's also encourage more investors to invest in Thai domiciled companies rather than force those companies to reincorporate in more tax-friendly destination. So as those initiatives come along, I think more companies will need to divert more funding to R&D, to setting up new initiatives. And I think overall, as those funding really moves in, then more innovations will start to mature and come out of our labs. And as well as in the farmlands where people are very innovative, they're coming up very local solutions, but have yet to meet an investor or a venture capitalist.
Thank you, Aim. I think that's very enlightening, because what we really need are policies that would push for this decentralization, that would allow people to take risks, right? And not be scared of any repercussions that they may face if they just go into early stage investing. Charlene, what about from the startup perspective? What type of policy can help you take this cutting edge technology forward better and more efficiently?
Thank you. So I think in general, what will be helping startup falls into two categories. The first one is the narrative itself, because I think this is an understatement, but market education is a real pain, and if done properly by countries like or regional organization like ASEAN, it will be a real booster for startup to grow. For example, like I imagine that we as an ASEAN could build a narrative like what is the future that we are aspire to be, what are our significance, which is one of them is biodiversity, and why ASEAN. So this kind of narrative will send a positive note to the startup, to the young entrepreneurs to be more willing to take the risk. And it will be also part of the market education to remind us that biodiversity is very important and what One Health is, for example. And the second part is the execution related policy. So in terms of the execution related policy, I would like to differentiate the challenge into three parts. The first one is the subjects, the one who do, like the talents. The second one is the objects, like the genetic data or the biodiversity itself. And the third one is the game, or how should we keep the game fair and ethical. So the first one regarding the subjects, like I believe that you also have the same understanding like me, like some ASEAN member state has better talent quality than the others. So that's why I strongly believe that we have to adopt an open talent policy. So for example, high caliber scientists can easily work in any of the ASEAN member state with reasonable financial benefit and incentives, tax for examples. And the second one regarding the objects. Speaking about the objects, which is genetics data and biodiversity, my point here is that we have to remember that this cannot be measured solely by money or the data valuation as we know it. Because digital data, such as, for example, phone number or our bank account number, if we lost it, we can always create a new account. But this is not the case of the genetics. In the case of genetics, when the data is lost and someone make a bioweapon out of it, nothing that we can do. So that's why we have to take into account the third part, which is to set the game clear. We have to start from an ethical committee and then followed by the technological sandboxing for startup in terms of providing safe laboratory facilities, for example, because the capex for setting up the laboratory is very huge. So we can make some incentive in terms of the laboratory facilities. And then we need like best digital security protection. And the last one will be the highly secure biobank. So I think the ASEAN member states should work together in making a growth medium where any startup has a better accessibility to talent and the biosafety facilities. That's from my point of view, Anna.
Thanks, Charlene. I think this is very tangible and actionable, actually. And I think the audience appreciates this largely. Fortunately, from the other end, we see a lot of these policies already surrounding environment and sustainability, right? We probably will just need to translate that same aggressiveness towards biosafety and so on. So, but for PACBICI, it will be more of the implementation side, right? That will be needing the push right now from a policy standpoint for environment and sustainability. So, Pak Dicky, what advice can you give corporates and companies that are wanting to actually explore partnerships and participate more actively in this energy transition and sustainability drive through the 4IR? Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, if we talk about this current situation, we know that the carbonization is not a new trend anymore. So I think in this long run, it will be all of the companies must go to this way. So from my perspective, first, company must have clear target and programs to make the energy transition and improve sustainability. And then second, company must have in-depth knowledge of what technology should then be applied, especially if they choose advanced 4AR-based technology. So we have a lot of technology that can reduce the emission, but it will need the 4AR based technology. And furthermore, the implementation of emission reduction and improvement of the sustainability must be transparent, measurable, and permanent to meet the target, their own target. And of course, all of the ASEAN countries also have their targets on emission reduction and sustainability. And then the companies then can contribute their own targets to their national target. And here, the ASEAN countries have wide opportunities to use climate finance and market-based mechanism, for example, or carbon market, also to combat the climate change. And in these days, all the mechanism and technologies are based on 4AR. The 4AR technology implementation also can reduce the greenhouse gas emission significantly, but it also needs high investment in the preliminary stage and less cost in the long run. Therefore, companies need to choose which way they must go, stay in the business as usual mode or go to the low carbon development. And it also can be implemented not only for companies, but also for the communities, countries, and even the ASEAN as a groups. We need to go the right direction to the low carbon development, and the 4AR can be a very good tools to achieve this target.
Very good points, Pak Dicky. I mean, it's really important to just first have that goal, right? And then a lot of this is already happening. So the next thing that you have to do is what's already out there that you can take inspiration from, because there's already a lot of work that has been done. And indeed, this is the benefit also with ASEAN, because we do not just have our own countries to learn from. We also have 9 others that we could learn from and collaborate with even. Let me pass the ball to Dr. Young, because as we start to close the panel discussion and move to the Q&A, because I see a lot of very interesting questions in the Q&A tab right now. Dr. Young, with the pace that we're seeing for the 4IR, it may be scary and daunting actually for many educators to be grasping, supporting, and pushing for the 4th Industrial Revolution technologies, right? Would you have any advice that you can give to your fellow educators in light of this 4IR? Anything that you'd like to say to them?
Yeah. Thank you, Anna, for such a kind of interesting issue. Yeah, I know that there's a lot of dilemma, both pushing and pulling forces related to the 4IR, but I'm very much optimistic about the situation. I strongly believe that we, the academe or the educator, should turn the challenges into the opportunities. And we continue to promote the lifelong learning among our educators, as well as the educational administrators. We should embrace as its core, and you should even quite, right now, there's a lot of good example of doing so. Our educator, more than 60-year-old teacher nowadays start learning to use the LMS to teach the student and to learn how to design the new lessons in the LMS. And they find out that, wow, it's much more interesting than they can imagine. And they started to love it. And they, They start asking a lot of technicians to help, but they learn a lot, and especially in teaching foreign languages, that would be very interesting at our university. And I do believe that in other institutions, that would be more or less similar. And this is a good evidence of how adaptable they are to the new situation. And for the instructional leaders of institution, we do believe that we should promote more project and initiative that incorporate digital advances into the social innovation, into the community engagement, so that our students can become more adaptable to life. And we also have another advice. We also advocate a more comprehensive initiative that promote a better application and preparation of education for the 4IRs. And this initiative should help unite the educators in the network as well as the region of Southeast Asia, contributing to the efforts of building up a digital community in ASEAN member state. And lastly, I would suggest that we should be highly creative in teaching, research, and administration of the program. We should think out of the box, even in some very, very difficult situation, like the case of Ho Chi Minh City, as some of you may know, during the pandemic recently in Vietnam. The educators, especially from our University of Social Sciences and Humanities, given the support by the Committee of Ho Chi Minh City, People Committee of Ho Chi Minh City, we the educator from the social sciences, but we trying to creatively come up with an interesting program called the Vaccine for the Mind, helping a large number of patients to overcome post-pandemic symptoms and diseases. And this program tremendously efficient, and we have already utilized, maximized the digital application in helping people. So we strongly believe that creativity is really important in teaching, in research, and of course in administration and reaching out the program for our students and for the society development. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Young. That's very encouraging, because really, I mean, a lot of opportunities out there. We really just need to start embracing it, right? Now we have reached the end of our panel discussion. So while I course through the questions that we have on the Q&A, I would like to invite anybody else in the panel. Do you have anything that you would like to add or add to the discussion right now before we go to the Q&A? Or let me take this opportunity to invite Alex to the panel now for the Q&A, because we have a lot of very interesting questions, some of them to the ASEAN Secretariat. And I would like to get your thoughts on a few of them, if that's okay. All right, so Alex, one of the questions here that we have from the audience is, what is ASEAN's strategy to address the difference of digital readiness between ASEAN member states? Because throughout the panel discussion, right, we saw that Bangkok is different, and then you have Singapore that's ahead of the curve. What do you have what do you have to say for this?
Well, thank you, Anna. I think if you don't mind, I will just rather try to answer some of the questions that have been addressed to ASEAN Secretariat, because some of them are quite similar, although asked in a different way. Yeah, of course, about the ASEAN digital, ASEAN 4IR readiness. This is quite a key. Of course, you may recall that from my presentation, I think I also mentioned that back in 2018, the ASEAN Secretariat did an internal assessment of ASEAN 4IR readiness, and we do recognize the significant differences among ASEAN member states. But whilst mindful of the differences in readiness in the region, I think we also need to. I think the region also need to embark on a more collective effort to address the challenges and tap the opportunities from the 4IR. After all, I think once we can actually pursue this together and collectively. In fact, I think a lot of the those that are currently left behind will be able to take a lot more benefit than those actually leading at the moment, so to speak. But another thing that I need to emphasize that I think inclusivity is, of course, the key. So we have to make sure that policies, strategies, and plans are consulted with the public, with the relevant stakeholders, and so that to make sure that all these policies, strategies, and plans are really relevant to their needs and requirements. And this is also one thing that I have to emphasize. Why the development of the strategy? How, I mean, compared to be honest, I mean, compared to many regions, many countries, they have had their 4IR strategies far before the ASEAN is having. But I think we are taking a very cautious approach. We are taking a very step-by-step approach, making sure that everybody can actually can chip in with their ideas and so on and so forth. And this is why it has been very long and challenging process, I must say. We have to navigate different strategies, and also the content I mentioned before. The content of our strategy is quite diverse, right? It goes beyond the traditional of manufacturing focus. It covers the interests and priorities of the three pillars of ASEAN cooperation, not to mention those of our stakeholders as well. Of course, our 4IR strategy, for certain, is not the answer for all the 4IR ASEAN needs and requirement, but I think it does serve as the basis to provide us with to serve as a guide for us to be able to address some of the 4IR, many of the 4IR challenges that the region is facing. Mind you also that as part of the recommendation of the strategy, as I recall, is that this is everything that is said in the strategy is not cast in stone. The document is subject for continuous and regular updating, monitoring and updating, so that to make sure that everything there has to be adjusted to the current the circumstances that the region is facing. Then there is a question about, if you don't mind, let me just take some time because there are several questions for ASEAN Secretariat. The other question is about like why is there a focus on the higher education and research and development sector that can actually produce the basic and applied research innovation together with the private sector? Well, I think I think the strategy is quite a long document. It does not say specifically the way that it's not exactly written in the way the question is posed. But I think if you look at the focus area 3 and strategic priority 1, it does actually give a specific priority on the promoting forward-looking human resource development through formal and continuing education. We do recognize there are up to 12 million students studying over 7,000 higher education institutions in our region. So the challenge is that we have to make sure that our educational institution be able to have the quality of education management. They are 4IR ready, if you like. And also, human resource development is indeed an important investment for ASEAN. It's something that we recognize highly. So the strengthening of such assets and making this our talents more valuable will be of great significance to us. And moving forward, I think the 4IR strategy calls for the continued improvement throughout the region. To increase the overall competitiveness by, I think, would be better. Of course, I think ASEAN education sector is trying to do this, converging gradually our curriculums with the latest innovation and industry development. So for this, I think the strategy also mentioned that we need the hardware, software, and internet infrastructure to be properly improved to ensure access for all students of all ages. And then there is a question on the cryptocurrency, I believe. Where does it specifically fall under the ASEAN initiative related to 4IR? To be frank, I think finance is part of our digital economy focus. I think at the moment the strategy focus mainly on the financial sector competitiveness and inclusion. But however, it does not preclude any 4IR technologies. But I think issues like specific issues like cryptocurrencies, while it might not be specifically highlight it because there are a lot of things that needs to be captured in the document. It is something that, of course, we can be considered as we move forward. Especially as I think our Deputy Secretary General mentioned earlier on that we are in process of developing an implementation plan. Is something that, of course, that we can look into, especially given the increased popularity of this means of exchange. Then there is a question about how ASEAN Secretariat can help empower government agencies of ASEAN member states in ICT infrastructure, which is the moment quite exorbitant. Well, I think of course, I think government agencies are at the forefront of in our effort to regulate via our policies and regulation. So they need to be equipped with the right tools to be able to regulate adequately and properly. Our strategy recognizes, I think there is a special, I think I mentioned this in my presentation as well, recognizes resource mobilization as one of the key enablers to make sure that building a digital economy, we know that building a digital ASEAN community will require immense resources to be mobilized from multiple sources. So it's not only coming from the member states, but also we need to be able to tap resources from our development partners, from our stakeholders, working in collaboration with private sector and so on and so forth. I think opportunities are there, and also a lot of our development partners are also looking into our 4IR work, and a lot of initiatives are already rolling at the moment in ASEAN at the ASEAN level. So I do not see this as being so much of an issue. The question more on how we can maximize the opportunities presented to our region by our partners and stakeholders. Yes, I think those are the questions that I can address at the moment. Sorry if I don't address. Maybe I will come back later. Thank you.
Thank you for that comprehensive answer, Alex. I think this is appreciated by a lot of people in the audience. Now let me shift back for a while now to some of our other speakers. So we have a question here directed, I suppose, to Pak Diki. In the Paris Agreement, right, there's an article that mentioned that developed countries should assist developing countries like ASEAN to reduce climate change impact. So, Pak Diki, how can ASEAN benefit from the Paris Agreement? Care to share your thoughts?
Yeah, for the finance from support from the developed country, sadly that we can say that there is still no evidence that they will give us properly, because until now their promises and their pledges are still on the sky. But of course, because the climate change is not only happen in the developed countries area, it is also happen in ASEAN countries. It is our own responsibilities. So we must do it with or without the developed country support. I mean that we are the ASEAN countries have a lot of capabilities to reduce the climate change, to change our way of life, to be greener, and to develop our economic and growth to the low carbon economy. So here I can say that it will be our own responsibility for our children to reduce the emissions and to do it properly by using our own capabilities. And in here, I also saw the question about the EV, the electric vehicle. Why we must introduce the electric vehicle while we are still using the coal, for example. For example, in Indonesia, we already have strategies and scenario for reducing the coals. And yes, all of the coal power producers, the old coal power generation are now being stopped. And there is no more a new coal power plant from 2025, for example. And we know that if the EV are still powered by coal power generation, yes, it is mean nothing, or at least it will still produce the emission. But here in Indonesia, there are some companies that have kind of EV but powered by the renewable energy. So some of the companies and some of the offices have their own charging system by using solar rooftop, for example. There are no been growing, and I think it will be a new trend for us to develop our own energies and then use it not only for the electricity in our home, but also for the electric vehicle. So that's my answer.
Thanks, Pak Diki. So what I get from this is where the developed countries can help actually is in one, the knowledge transfer, two, the funding support if that's possible, and three, the guidance on how to do this holistically, right? Because at the end of the day, if we're going for EVs but it's still powered by coal, then it's not really holistic in that way. So that support is of course what will be most appreciated. There's a question here for Charlene on to discuss further on how the teaching of biology actually integrates the processes. She discussed about genomics and initiative. Can you tell? Can you speak more about this for the benefit of our audience?
Yep. Thank you. First of all, I would like to say that I agree with Pak Diki because the sustainability and the climate change is a planet problems, not only the developed or developing countries problem, right? But the irony is we in the ASEAN, we have the world's most valuable resources, which is biodiversity, which is in fact highly threatened by our own economic activity because in fact we are still developing, right? So that's why the game is that we have to preserve our biodiversity without compromising our economic development, right? And without relying too much on the developed countries. So this is why the biology teaching particularly is very important from my point of view. The bottom line here is that science needs to be translated. Like what we talked today in the Zoom meeting, we use a lot of jargons, for example, like 4IR or the digital cybersecurity, genomics, something that cannot be understood by the common citizen, right? So we believe this is also important, particularly when we are making a consumer business, that first-hand experience and something relatable is the best strategy to educate. So what we did in Nusantics, for example, we try to communicate that half of our body is microbes, and microbes is important in defining our immune system. But we have to put into a local context. For example, in Indonesia, when we are talking about the preventive health or the predictive health, it is something that cannot be understood by the common citizen. So that's why the first step that Nusantics did is to penetrate into the beauty sector. So we deliver innovations such as a PCR swab for your facial skin, so you know what is causing your acne. Is it bacteria or is it fungal? And how to treat that. So by that kind of market inception and intervention, so the beauty enthusiasts finally understand that, oh, there is microbes in my skin. And the diversity of the microbes and the balance of the microbes is very important. So by taking care of your own microbial diversity in your skin, you are actually helping to take care of the biodiversity of the planet, something like that. And the second one about the education of the importance of the breast milk and variety of the diet itself. So we try to educate the mommy with provocative questions. For example, why is breast milk is the best? Because turns out one of the breast milk component is the only food that can be digested by the good bacteria in your baby's gut. So that's why by telling a simple and relatable story, scientific story like this, the mummies finally understand that, oh, there is a lot of microbiome in my baby guts and needs to be kept, and that's why the variety of the diet is important. And in order to keep the variety of the diet, we have to protect our biodiversity. So something like that. Yeah, so I think that's all from me. Science needs to be translated, and it should be translated into something that is relatable. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlene. I think for all of those that are scientifically inclined, that would be very, very useful. For everyone else, we will wait for the translation, because that's what we will be able to grasp.
Yep. So yeah. Acne is more interesting, right, than genomics.
Yeah. Thanks, Charlene. Now, we do have a lot more questions, but unfortunately, we are running out of time in our schedule today. So what I would like to do is, we will keep all of these questions, right? And we may answer them in writing after this webinar directly to whoever sent them. But what I would like to do now is I would like to invite every single panelist for a minute each. Would you have any closing remarks for the audience that we have here today? Let me first start with AIM, perhaps. AIM, any closing remarks for our audience today, which is, as you can see, very, very diverse, right? And there are still hundreds of them right now, over our expectations. Go ahead, AIM.
Sure. I totally feel for Charlene that science is sexy again. Support their innovators that have been left behind. I can summarize that the core theme is really about harmonization and replication. So I think with the ASEAN Secretariat, you will have an incredible mandate to see how each ecosystems across the region are progressing and pick the best ideas of each country and also from abroad, and be able to leverage this incredible vantage point to help countries leapfrog and not make the same mistakes, but at the same time, be able to, as David mentioned, enable cross-sector collaboration. A lot of players, I think Huawei is very good at doing this, but many other corporations struggle to find partners, whether it's startups, investors, with government bodies, and to really encourage them to do more together. Every time there's a great collaboration, you'll see great stories and impact. And I think with Pak Dickie mentioning about sustainability, I think if that was a sector that is really close to the ASEAN heart and the way of living, is about to live more closely with nature, with spirituality. And I feel that that's a pillar that may, if I were to add, in conjunction with Charlene, which is social entrepreneurship, impact tech, moving towards net zero or carbon negative societies, is crucial to the livelihood. We are at the epicenter of climate change, of ocean plastics. I mean, so many accelerators programs that want to be based in Southeast Asia, but we should not be just the originator of the problems, but actually the lab for the solutions. And then lastly, with Dr. Dung, I advise as an innovation advisor at a very famous international school here in Thailand, Verso and Thammasat University. We're creating entrepreneurship programs for both university, high school, middle school students. But the future is here, especially the future of education, but it's only available to a select few of the most privileged or the luckiest or the smartest. And I think that is a theme of ASEAN, which is how can co-working spaces and accelerators and incubators, great schools that teach digital literacy from day one, be at every village in the hill tribes or deep in the oceans, and really flourish these opportunities, because now we have 5G and connectivity everywhere. Digital nomads are coming to take advantage and live the incredible lifestyle in the region and bring a lot of great investment and knowledge, but those same lifestyle are not afforded and available to the people that live in ASEAN. So hopefully that is my wish, and I hope to continue to support the ASEAN Secretariat on this incredible mission.
Thank you, Aim. Very comprehensive closing remarks from you. May I invite perhaps David, any last words for our audience who really looked forward to hearing from you today and all that Huawei had in plans?
Thank you, Anna. So for the pandemic, I think has brought challenges to the people's life, and also the digital divide requires our socially balanced development, balanced service, and also for inclusive education, and also for the industry development. So the 4IR is being addressed by the digital technology, also driven by the digital infrastructure, like 5G, big data, AI, right? This will drive the economy, the faster growth, and also for green development. So for ASEAN, I think we have opportunities to take the needed position in 4IR, also as well as a lot of other challenges. So, but the technology is for good and also for improving the people's well-being. So as a global leading ICT supplier, so Huawei will pursue not only for the commercial interest, but we also actively we want to return to the society. So also to narrow the digital divide, and also let no one behind in the digital era. So Huawei is willing to bring the digital to every person and also every home and organization for a full collected and also for intelligent action. So we want to continue to contribute to full collected and intelligent asset in the next decades, even long term.
Thank you so much, David. I think we all are very delighted to hear that, actually. Dr. Hyung, would you like to give last few words to the audience today? It's very engaged.
Thank you, Anna. And thank you, Ahmad, for your sharing of the link, as well as the mentioning of the Thammasat Institution and the social innovation program and entrepreneurship. I know that is very interesting. And the reason why I would like to say in a few words, the academe should foster an academic culture where the key stakeholder, both the educators and the learners alike, are highly dynamic and readily adaptable to digital transformation in all fields of work and life. So I strongly believe that the consolidated strategy of the 4IR would continue to be promoted as soon as it can be, because as I go through all the Q&A section, a number of questions are very interesting. All of your questions show that we are very much concerned about the digitalization of our ASEAN community, and it should come as fast as it should be. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Young. Pak Vicky, any closing remarks for the public?
Discussing about the 4IR today is opening my eyes that everything that we must do, everything that we have done, like I have done a lot of implementation of renewable energy and energy efficiency using the 4AR and using the latest technology, the blockchains for our own carbon market, and kind of newest technology like that. But at the end, it will go back to ourselves. At the end, it will go back to who will do it. And this is how then we must educate the people. We must enhance the people of ASEAN capacity. We must enhance the citizen of ASEAN capacity on how then to implement all of this 4AR and to develop our economy, and then to reduce the emission, to educate our children and everything. At the end, it will go back to the men or women behind the guns. So here, in my closing remarks, I would like to state that the collaboration among ASEAN countries and among all of the stakeholders are the key point, the most important things in the implementation of this 4AR. I thank you.
Thank you, Pak Diki. And of course, last but not the least, definitely, Charlene, any last words for our audience today?
Good. Okay, so my closing statement is short and simple. So I believe that we have to be the narrator of the 4th industrial revolution, but we have to narrate a specific and unifying cause. In this case, I propose that ASEAN should become a significant part of 4IR in terms of the health and sustainability issue. Because there is no single region with as rich as ASEAN in terms of biodiversity. And I also believe that startups has the agility to answer the challenge while challenging the bureaucracy itself, because we are very agile, right? So we should encourage more entrepreneurship and invest in more startups. I think that's all.
Thank you so much, Arlene, for that very brief closing. Now, we have come to the end of our webinar, and to close this session, may I once again invite the ASEAN Secretariat by Alex. Alex, please go ahead and close this session. All yours.
Thank you, Anna, for a very excellent moderation, I must say. And also thank you, of course, for the panelists for sharing your valuable insights and perspective, as well as the audience for the extremely rich question. And I'm terribly sorry that a lot of the question actually going to us, but unfortunately, due to time constraint, we cannot address them all. And of course, we take into account some of the suggestions that you raised. Thank you for sharing all your ideas and also your support for us to continue our work on 4IR. I will not take up too much of everyone's time, and will not just I will not try to summarize the extremely rich discussion that we just had. But I think what I'm trying to do just to reemphasize some of the key messages that ASEAN would like to relay to our stakeholders. First is that without doubt, 4IR is gaining significant importance in our world, in our region included. It has changed the way we live, produce, work, study, interact, and it will require our governments and society to adapt to be able to harness its benefits. 4IR, of course, in spite of its significant benefits, also comes with its challenges, such as cybersecurity threats, potential loss of employment, and so on. But the potential benefits, of course, we think that it far outweigh the cost. So to the extent possible, we'll need to be able to strategize to be able to maximize its potential benefits. ASEAN 4IR journey, of course, has been long and very interesting. It required us to navigate different 4IR priorities and agendas of member states, stakeholders, sectoral bodies, and so on and so forth. But the strategy itself is our attempt to consolidate all these different visions and priorities, and hopefully could serve as a guide to drive our collective 4IR agenda moving forward. Focus areas and priorities of strategies mentioned in the strategy, as I mentioned and I repeatedly mentioned before, is not cast in stone and can be adjusted to our collective needs and requirements as the time evolves. It is also important to emphasize that the development of 4IR strategy is a collective effort of everyone in ASEAN, stakeholders and partners. With that, before I close, allow me on behalf of my team at the ASEAN Secretariat to thank the following individuals. One, of course, Anna and her team of experts at the YCPS, particularly Kuhan Jagannathan, Kim Andrason, and Muhammad Harun bin Haji Abdul Jabbar, as well as, I think before you had a team member of Uyun Wong. Thank you very much for your contribution in the making of this strategy. Of course, the ASEAN member states, especially Brunei Darussalam, which had identified the initiative as one of its cross-pillar priority deliverables last year. All relevant sectoral bodies across the 3 pillars of ASEAN cooperation, 45 of them to be precise, and the wider ASEAN stakeholders and partners. Of course, without any doubt, the ASEAN-Australia Development Cooperation Program Phase 2. Special thanks to Ambassador Will for having involved in many of our activities, and also especially to Kun Patnarin Sutirak, for all the continuous support that she has given us from the beginning of the project until now. Of course, I'd like also to thank my own team, the ASEAN Secretariat, who has really helped the development of the strategy. Dr. Irfan Mujahid, Ruth Mahayasari, my Secretary General, and also Deputy Secretary General Safinder Singh, as well as my Director Zafar, who had helped not only in providing strategic direction in the making of the strategy, but also in helping to sharpen the strategic content and also the focus. The initiative, of course, benefited from the initial input from Dr. Julia Tijaya, former director of ASEAN Integration Monitoring Directorate. So I think I've mentioned all the names that need to be given credit to, and if I omitted anyone, please apologize. It's not the intention. And so with that, on behalf of the ASEAN Secretariat, I thank you all again for your active participation and contribution to this webinar. Thank you. Stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this closes our webinar today. Thank you once again for your participation. On behalf of the ASEAN Secretariat, thank you. And again, have a great day. Stay safe and take care, everyone.
Thank you very much, Anna. And thank you very much, Pak Chandra, and everybody in ASEAN Secretariat.
Thank you. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih.